Oh,
Hello.
here you are. Hi.
You have a new dog.
I can't hear you. Oh no, here we are.
You
Why are
got
you
a new
wearing? Are
dog.
you cold?
Yeah, it's pretty cold here.
Oh, do you guys have snow yet? No.
No, not here, but there was some at like 2,000 meters in Chamonix.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing since you finished the UTMB? Have you been training? I mean, back into training with a new objective, or are you taking a few days or weeks off to think it over?
No, I've been, I can still call it training, but not like with a clear objective in the near future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a good week to really do almost nothing, just like
Oh wow. Only a week.
moving around.
Okay.
Yeah, well, no, and then I was still very much on the like resting side, but like taking the time to like go hike to a refuge to have coffee with a friend or like things that were still moving but not like
Regular mountain bike.
pushing in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Jim Walsmay since the end of the UTMB?
Not really, no. I mean, we said
Okay.
hi like in the
Like
after.
he's not like a good friend that you talk to on the phone, or you just know him.
Yeah, I know him. I don't even talk to my parents on the phone that often. I'm not very good at keeping in touch with people.
Okay.
So,
Okay. No, I
yeah.
was just wondering. I mean, since you won the UTMB and he's struggling to do it, and he lives in France now, and you also live in France, and you've been living in France for a while. And this was one of the, during the race on the Twitter feeds, some people were saying this, that, you've made that choice to live in the Alps for a while, and for a race like UTMB, it pays off. So I was just wondering if he had at some point reached out to you, but I'm not, apparently not. Okay.
Not after the race, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
What? Say what? What?
No, no, we didn't like chat about anything after the race.
So I have a very difficult and provocative question. Since you told me not to ask you about what happened during the race, I'm not going to do that. But as a revenge, I'm going to ask you a tough question.
Okay.
It felt like when I saw you do the race, it felt like you were so mentally driven to win. Like you had no hesitations. Like you were going to lead the race and just go do your thing, and you were going to win that thing no matter what. And when I said no matter what, I actually mean because Courtney Walter wasn't there. It's almost like when Jim Walsmay is not in Western States, people are like, okay, well, this is the year that I can win it. Did you feel a little bit like that when you knew that she was not coming? Or are you not, or it wouldn't have changed your way of racing if she had been there?
Oh, I don't think it would have changed my way of racing if she had been there. Of course, I like respect her so much as an athlete, and maybe if I had gone out like that and I had been like ahead of her, I would have second guessed myself, because I do like, yeah, for sure, I like look up to her as a competitor. But I also know that I don't I know that I can also like compete with the top of the game. So I don't feel like, oh, I should be behind. Like I feel like on a good day I can be there too.
No, I mean you proved it.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure, like not having Courtney there, like on the start line, there was still like a long list of girls who I felt like I would be competing with. But it kind of felt like it was a bit more open. Like there wasn't this like just totally dominant figure.
I mean, thank you. I
Yeah.
thought that honestly, when I saw you at the beginning, I was like, okay, well, she's going to win this thing. I mean, it was just clear. I mean, I know you don't want to talk what happened, but it was just very beginning that you looked so at peace with what you were doing. I mean, I could read it in your face that I was like, okay, well,
yeah, I was mostly just really happy to be like running, because a lot had happened behind the scenes getting to that point, and I was just relieved that it was like finally happening. I finally just run, and just do the thing that I came there to do and not like deal with all this other stressful stuff that had nothing to do with running.
Yeah. You know what's ironic also for your sponsor, the North Face, is the North Face started the race. I mean, as you, I'm sure, very well aware. Toffer Geller was the EMEA boss of the North Face. And yeah, Paul Capel won the UTMB when he was sponsored by the North Face. So I don't know. I have a feeling that this brand is coming back to trail running very strongly. For a while, the closing line of the North Face has always been nice. It's always been effective for trail running in the mountains. There's no question about it. But the shoes, they have tried to come up with running shoes, good running shoes for a while, like for many, many years, like, I don't know, 10 years, if not more. And they have mostly failed, except those past few years, like 1-2 years with the Vective carbon shoe. That's the shoe that you used, right? Your shoe had a carbon plate in it.
I can't really discuss what my shoes were because it's a prototype.
But can you just say it had carbon in it?
There was some carbon in it, but I can't really tell you what it is.
Okay.
But it will be sold next year. So
be sold next year. Okay.
Yeah.
So after the race, because I think people are interested in the testing and prototype process. After the race, you discussed with the North Face the shoe, or not yet? Or is it something you're going to do? Because obviously that shoe was good. I mean, I'm not saying the shoe made you win, but the shoe definitely contributed.
Do you mean in terms of like changing it, or
in terms of feedbacks that you are going to give them? Did you do it already, or are you going to do it?
Well, the shoe's finalized. It's going to be sold like that. So
okay. So
yeah.
Been training.
Sorry.
It's a shoe that you've been training with.
Yeah, I've been training with it since April, since we joined.
Okay, but it's not the new Vective. It's a different shoe.
I don't think it's sold under the Vective. I don't know. I actually don't know all the marketing stuff. Okay. So yeah.
Because the first shoe with the carbon plate that they released was called the Vective, and then they had the Vective 2. And so I was just wondering if it was the Vective 3 or if it was a new shoe that's going to.
I don't know if they're calling it a Vective. If they are, it's really, really, really different than the current Vective. But Vective describes the whole line of shoes. So you're talking about the Flight Vective, I think.
Yes.
Which has a carbon plate. But I would say it's, as we all know, it's not the carbon plate, it's the foam. So even if a shoe has a carbon plate, if you're just running on a carbon plate, it's not really that helpful. So it's the whole like combination of foam and plate and stiffness and flexibility. So yeah, I think that kind of gets lost in communication. Is like, yeah, a shoe can have a carbon plate, but that means absolutely nothing. So
right. I mean, sure, of course, but then it's also fair to say that a shoe can be as good as the designer make it, but if there is no carbon plate, I mean, it's also I mean, the difference is also huge. I mean, we're seeing it in marathon running every day. Like,
it depends
why people are so obsessed.
Depends what you're doing. If you're doing like a super technical sky running race, I would not want a carbon plate in my shoe.
Okay. Why not? That's interesting because
it's not flexible.
Because what?
It's not flexible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So for a race like UTMB, then it's an adapted carbon plate. I imagine it's just a different type of design of the plate than in a road shoe, I guess. I imagine.
Yeah, I think most brands they're a little bit different.
I mean, people don't know those things, because nobody.
Yeah, I can't. The problem is I can't really tell you the details.
No, I know.
But I know that in the other shoes with carbon plates, they're normally split in a trail running shoe, so that you do have some flexibility.
Yeah.
Within the shoe, whereas the marathon shoe doesn't normally have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to congratulate you. I mean, you have such an interesting life. I mean, the PhD to begin the year, right? When did you finish this? It was at the beginning of the year, right?
No, it was June 10th.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, June 10th. So you finished that finally. I remember a year or two we discussed this, and you're like, oh yeah, I don't know if I'm still a PhD student. I don't know if I'm ever going to finish this. But I guess that's a speech that every PhD student says at some point in their research.
Yeah, you never feel like it's going to end. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that was big. I mean, not everybody gets a PhD. That's pretty good. And I mean, that's just pretty amazing, actually. And then the UTMB. I mean, what a year. What else is coming for you before December in those 2-3 next months? Do you have anything else?
No, I feel like I accomplished enough this year, and I don't want to push it any more than I need to. So I'll be crewing Germain at Vous.
Oh, he's going there. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and then we're in the US for most of November.
Oh, I was going to ask you, when are you coming back to the US, and how long are you guys going to stay? You're going to be there in November, but you're going to, where are you going?
First, we're going to Bishop to the North Face Athlete Summit for a week.
Nice.
With all the athletes. Yeah. And then we'll be visiting one of my best friends from college for a week, and then to Maine for Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, because you were originally from Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How often do you guys go to the US? Like, do you at least go once a year? I mean, I know COVID.
I go once a year. Germain hasn't been able to go for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it'll be his first time since 2019.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you plan on staying in France for a long time? What's your visa situation? What is your visa? Because now you're not are you still under a visa student? No, you're under like a pro.
No, so before I had the working visa in Switzerland to be a PhD student.
Right.
And then I got my passeport talent in France. So it's, for professional athletes or artists.
Right.
And yeah, that's
right. It's like in the US, it's a limited amount of your visa, or not?
Yeah, but it's much easier to get than in the US.
Okay.
It would be really difficult for Germain to get that in the US, but it's much easier for me to get it here.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. It's not like trail running isn't an Olympic sport. It's not. Yeah. But yeah, I have a 4-year visa, and it's really easy to renew. So basically I can, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it would be easier if Germain had won the UTMB, but it's something that I'll discuss with him maybe.
I don't think that would change the US customs.
I mean, I was going to begin the conversation by calling you world champion, because you know how the World Series in baseball, like,
oh yeah,
like why is it called World Series when really, I mean, there's a few Cubans and a few Japanese in the league, but it's mostly Americans, right? But it's
basically Americans and Europeans. I mean, the Russians weren't even allowed to come this year, so we can't.
Yeah, okay, but there's also you're talking about the UTMB, but there's also like Asians runner were there, right?
The Asian runners were there, but I mean, like the woman who won CCC is from Nepal.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of the North Face. Oh, she's also part of the North Face team. And then there was a few men who I was running with who were from Thailand.
The thing why I wanted to call it the world, like a world title, is that contrary to the Western states or to hard rock or to most 100 miles in America, if you're a pro athlete and you want to run the UTMB, it's easy. I mean, I imagine you just call.
I wouldn't say easy, but it's more inclusive.
Points,
yeah.
Maybe, right? You do need points.
It's easier than Western states or hard rock. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a lottery. Like if you're good at what you do, you have the points. And so you just call and say, hey, I want to come run the UTMB. Or you didn't even have to call. I guess they invite you automatically.
You still have to pay, but yeah.
Yeah. So, so all the best in the world can
be there.
UTMB if they're fit that year, or if they're.
Yeah, that'll change next year. But yeah, for now, that's how it is.
How it will change next year?
Because you have to qualify through another UTMB, right?
Oh, yeah. With the series that they.
Yeah.
But
it's still easier than Western states, and I mean, hard rock's like a black box, but Western states is yeah, you would have to, if you wanted to qualify for Western states, you'd have to go to a golden ticket race, most of which are in the US. So you'd have to have the money to spend like a decent amount of time in the US. Also come from a country who can easily get a visa to be a tourist in the US. Like a lot of these Asian countries, they can't just come to the US for 3 months without a special visa. So.
Yeah, no, I know, because when I was in, I mean, it's the same in Europe, you know, when I was living in India, a lot of my Indian friends were regularly getting their visa for the Schengen zone being denied, just because they were from India, you know, it's just it's simple. There are two things that I want to discuss with Germain, that he wants to discuss with me, is the l'environnement. How do you say that in English again?
Environment.
Yeah, there's a few words that it's just hard for me to say. So the environment and the crowd at the UTMB and the aid stations and the other thing he wants to talk about, and I'm happy to discuss them with you, I don't know if you're willing to, is the prize money. He told me there was a race. I wasn't even aware of it. I don't know which one, if it's the TDS or that had no prize money. And is it something you're comfortable discussing or not? It's okay.
Yeah, I don't have like a ton to say, but yeah, I can.
Okay. So do you know which race he's talking about? Do you know about the prize money thing?
Yeah, so TDS, which is no longer part of the UTMB World Series.
Oh, that's why.
But in the past has been part of the UTMB week. I think there was a lot of confusion this year because this year was like a transition year where they're switching everything to being either 20K, 50K, 100K, 100 mile. And so clearly TDS doesn't fit in that. And I think it's cool that UTMB is really defining like what the target races are and the distances. And they're putting equal prize money on, I'm not sure about the 20K, but at least the 50K, 100K, 100 mile, which I think is great because I think it shows everyone that I get a lot of comments like, oh, but I could never run 100 miles. It's like, but you don't have to. There's other distances you don't like. It's cool that UTMB is UTMB, but also if you want to really compete at a high level in the 50K, like at OCC,
yeah, you can.
It's a different type of race, so you should still be awarded the same amount of prize money. It's not because a race is longer that it deserves a different amount of prize money. I don't
know about that, actually. I mean, I agree that men and women should get the same amount of money. And is that the case?
Yeah.
But I don't know about the distances. And the reason behind why I don't know. And actually, I don't think so. But I'm happy to discuss it with you. It's because not that many people are interested in the shorter distances.
That's not true at all.
Wait, hang on. In the terms, not the runners, but the viewers. I mean, everybody talks about one race. It's the UTMB. Eventually, we discuss a little bit the CCC. But as a viewer, I don't know if people care that much about who wins the OCC or the MCC or the TDS.
Well, so the MCC is a race for the volunteers. It's not part of the competition.
Okay.
That's like you're here to volunteer. You want to do something interesting. That's not like competitive race. The OCC is a 50K. And I would say it's easier as a viewer to follow a 50K than 170K.
Yeah, it's much shorter. It is easier if you want to look at it live. I give you that. But in the end, on Twitter or on Instagram or on YouTube, I mean, I don't have the stats, but I imagine that what people follow. I mean, what people followed the most this year is the duel between Kilian Jornet and Jim Wasmey, right?
Yeah, but I bet if they ran the OCC, it would be the same.
You mean people would follow Kilian Jornet and Jim Wasmey?
If they were running OCC, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not. I mean, they're not.
But they they could.
Well, technically they could, but effectively they don't. And so until like superstars like those guys or someone like you would run the OCC, then there's a. I mean, right now that race is not as popular. So I understand that, you know, it's like, I mean, I don't know, it's like any other sports it's related to how much I mean, the popularity of the sport. Like we can agree, we can discuss how much soccer players are paid, you know, or even, you know, NBA players or NFL players or MLB players. But in the end of the day, it's because they generate a lot of revenue.
Yeah, but it's also putting the money where you want things to happen. So like you could also argue, oh, there aren't very many women, so they shouldn't get the same amount of prize money. And then we're getting back to the same argument. Is like, okay, but maybe if we put real prize money there, there will be more people who come. That's the point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the women, like the sex thing, is more like a society fairness thing. It's not because you're a woman that. I mean, tennis is a good example, right? Women's tennis has managed to bring a lot of audience to watch tennis, which was not the case.
Yeah, so maybe putting equal prize money on a 50K will bring more audience because more people will say, oh, hey, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
There's prize money and let's like make this a super, like even more competitive than it already is.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal, is to make each race equally competitive.
Yeah.
But it's hard to talk about this because each race is a completely different athlete. I mean, Killian's a whole, he doesn't count. Like nobody is like that. Nobody can win Sierre-Zinal and UTMB. That's only him. So if we like forget about him, it's completely different athletes who are going to win UTMB and win OCC.
Right. Yeah. No, but of course.
Yeah. And so the athlete that trains for OCC should get the same amount of prize money as the person who trains for UTMB. And putting the same amount of prize money on that race ensures that more of those athletes will go to that race. So there will be the like 50K stars in the future because they're putting the money there to say, hey, we want this.
Yeah.
So saying, oh, it's not there, we're not going to put money on it, does not help anyone make that move.
Sure. I mean, of course. But I think it's you know, it's the difficult combination between what's offered and what is the demand. Because you can say that of any distance and any sports, basically, right? But people are not interested in everything. So, I mean, there's no way around the fact that 100-mile is so fascinating for most people. Like most people don't even understand how, so they're just fascinated by it. And so when Jim Wildsmith does what he does at Western State, or Kilian wins Hard Rock, and then UTMB, I mean, people are just so interested. Like a 50K, it's not the same. I mean, I understand your argument, but I think it's an athlete argument. But from the public point of view, a 50K race, there are many, many, many 50K races. There's just one UTMB, like the 100-mile races that really matters. There's not that many. And so, of course,
that's the goal of UTMB, is to make all the distances matter.
But
they've made these clear categories: 100-mile, 100K, 50K, and the 20K. I'm not totally sure about what's going on with that, but they're trying to make every distance equal. So there are these 3 categories.
Yeah, but the distances are not equal by nature. I mean, someone who starts do 20K next year, when you're a runner, I mean, I was a beginner runner, you were a beginner runner. You start with short distance and then you're like, oh, okay, well now maybe my challenge will either to do a better timing at the 20K or to go bigger distance, right? And you can't erase the fact that long distance in the mountains is what the brands are promoting, because it's not only UTMB, like it's also the sponsors, the brands, like the athletes that you see on YouTube, on the films. Or there was let's not talk about your brand, but there's a new Adidas Terex film on YouTube I saw the other day, and they talk about ultra running. And the first sentence, I don't remember the name of the athlete, it's a female athlete, and she says, well, everybody think that they can run an ultra, but it's a different sport. It's not at all the same to run 20K. And I mean, no, she says you can run an hour in the mountain, but can you run 20, you know? And you listen to this, it's fascinating. You're like, oh my God, what? 20 hours in the mountain? That's crazy. And so you will Google it, you will get interested. And as a runner, it's a fantasy to run those distances. And so I understand what the UTMB are saying. I think it's good for the sport, you know, and it's actually very good that in their speech, every distance is somehow similar. And I say somehow, but at the end of the day, you can't beat what the people would want to see. You know, you can't force it down their throat. Like people will always be more fascinating by 100 miles because of what it represents. than 20K. And so if you're telling me, well, yeah, but the guy that wins the Chamonix, he's winning 10 times the amount of money that the guy who wins the 20K or the 50K, it doesn't bother me, you know? I mean, honest to God, it doesn't bother me. It would bother me if the woman doesn't win as much because she does the same efforts. And even that can be under discussion. I mean, now these days, it's not politically correct to discuss this. But back in the days, the reason why it's because of television, right? Most people were watching men's sports and not women's sports, right? But so again, it was unfair. And so we left that, we worked on that. But the 20K and the 50K, I mean, sure, it would be beautiful to have the best in the world racing there, but don't we have them already in the UTMB? In those short distances? Do you think more money will bring better runners?
Yes. Yeah,
it's possible. It's possible. And I mean, if UTMB has the money to do it, then, I mean, good. I mean, I'm happy when people make money. That's not, that should not anger anybody. But I still think that in terms of viewers on anything, any platform, 100-mile race or even 100K, but I think 100-mile, especially in Chamonix, since that's how the race started, you know, like a shorter sky, like Sierre-Zinal, what you were saying. I mean, if tomorrow Sierre-Zinal adds 100K distance, well, I don't know. It's a different question. Are people going to follow it? I don't know. But UTMB started as a 100-mile, and that's what it's known for. And I think even the people who are pretty new to the sport, that's what they fantasize about. I mean, that's why it's so hard to register when you're just a random normal runner, because everybody wants to do it, you know. And that's also why they have so many DNF. It's because most people aren't really understanding what it is and aren't fit enough and aren't training enough. I mean, do you think I make sense at all or not at all?
I completely disagree with you, but we don't like pay the 100-meter sprinters less than a marathon runner. So
who doesn't?
We don't like put prize money on track events by the distance of the race. So why?
Well, I mean, the sponsors, they do. You know, I don't think a marathon runner is paid as much as a 100-meter sprinter in the end. And why is that?
We're talking about prize money, not what the sponsors are giving.
Yeah, but I mean,
which is different.
Are you talking Olympics or are you talking in any athletic competition?
But just like we don't go to a track meet and say, oh, okay, the 100-meter sprinter, okay, their prize money should be 1/10 less than the guy who does the 10K.
Yeah, okay.
It's like we don't expect the person who wins the 100-meter to go win the 10K. It's a completely different athlete.
Yeah, but I don't know, for some reason it would not bother me. You know, because if that 100K star or if those 100K runners are the people who are bringing the public into the stadium, then why shouldn't they get more money than the javelin thrower? I mean, I have nothing against javelin throwing, but I mean, who cares, right? It's not a sport that people do. 100 meters, I think it's so popular because people can see themselves run 100 meters. And then it's also very spectacular you know, and so I understand your argument. I'm like, sure, it's fair for all the athletes, but as a viewer, I don't know if I would be bothered by that. And actually, I didn't know. I mean, I don't know how prize money works in athletics.
This wasn't even the controversial thing that Jean probably mentioned. I was just telling you that the prize money.
No, of course, but it's always interesting to discuss those things with women.
Yeah. So the thing that people were talking about is because someone who did TDS was upset that that they didn't have prize money, which it looks like it was a mistake on UTMB's part that they didn't update their website, because we do have a PDF document that has all the prize money outlined that we got at the beginning of the season. That does not include TDS. And unfortunately, they didn't update the website. So it wasn't as clear as it should have been, honestly. Like, they should have updated their website. And that's like, clearly they made a huge mistake there.
So do you know the follow-up of this story? Are they going to pay the runners just like they?
I have no idea.
Because that's what you're saying, right? On the website, it was said that the prize money was going to be this.
No, it
yeah.
didn't say anything. It honestly didn't say anything on the website about what anybody's prize money was.
Okay. So I don't know. So I'm sorry. What did they say on the website that was different than?
So the website didn't say anything about anybody's prize money. After the race, people who ran the races in those three categories, 100-mile, 100K, 50K, got emails saying, this is how much money you won from your race. The people who did TDS didn't get an email saying that because their race didn't have any prize money. But nobody knew who was getting prize money, how much, and like from which race, because they hadn't updated the website.
Did you know, for example, how much you would win if you win UTMB? Before
no, because I didn't look because I don't care, because that's not why I'm at UTMB. But then afterwards, I got an email saying that I won 10,000 euros because that's what the first place of UTMB, CCC, and OCC won.
Okay, so you won 10,000 euros. That was the price?
For first, yeah, in all three of those categories.
Okay, so did Kilian Jornet also win? He won the same amount.
Yeah.
But $10,000 matters, no? Like, what do you mean you don't care?
But it doesn't change anything about how I approach the race. So why do I need to look before the race? Like, I'm going to sign up for UTMB if there's no prize money. I'm going to sign up for
athlete, right? You make money for a living. What money you make? I'm not saying that because UTMB pay less or more, you would have decided to go or not go. But I'm just surprised that you were not interested in how much money you would make if you win. Like $10,000 for a lot of people, it's a lot of money. And
it is a lot of money, but it also doesn't change anything about why I'm there, what I do when I'm there. So it's something that I don't need to add to my brain before a race. It's just like, okay, a bonus, for me, a bonus is a bonus.
Okay.
So if I need a bonus, that means that my contract is not correct. It means I can't live off my contracts, which I make sure that I have contracts that I can live off of without a bonus. A bonus goes on top. That's like, oh, cool, I got a bonus. It's not something that you plan for or stressed about. So it's not something I need to add. I have enough stress before a race. I don't need to add like, oh, but what if I won this amount of money? What if I won this amount of money?
But that's because
I'm not here to like win money at races. That's not like, I see that that's it's a real amount of money for sure. Like getting that email after, I was like, wow, okay, that's really cool, but that's a bonus.
Right. But that's because you have a great contract with all your sponsors. But for an athlete who's not that good, it's okay to race for money also, I think. You know,
yeah, for sure. I mean, I totally see plenty of people race for money. But I knew that that money doesn't change what I do tomorrow. So
no, I understand, but I was actually saying this more for the TDS people who only after the race realized that they were not going to make, they didn't make any money. And so,
if I was in a position where I needed to race for money and I had signed up for TDS, I went on the website ahead of time and saw, where does it say how much the prizes are? I would have asked if that was something I was dependent on.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, I understand that they're upset and I don't think it's fair, but at the same time, maybe you should have, tried to know before the race what was going to happen with the prize money. Like, it's a little, you see my point. Like, okay, sure, UTMB should be clear, and so either they move this year to the UTMB series, and so it's only UTMB, CCC, and I keep forgetting the name of that race? OCC, and TDS is out, or it's not out, but you have to be clear. But as an athlete, especially if you're pro or semi-pro, and even worse if you're semi-pro, which like you're rightly saying, you also raise for the money, like $10,000. I mean, if you don't look before, then it's also your fault. I mean, in a way, you can complain as much as you want, but
I would say UTMB made a huge mistake, and maybe because we were a bit more on top of the UTMB communication. We felt it was pretty clear that TDS wasn't part of the World Series this year. They even moved it earlier in the week, so it wasn't like in the same timing. I mean, it's really unfortunate that there was this mistake made, and I yeah, I don't really have that many emotions about it. It's like people made mistakes, and yeah, I mean, it's too bad. I don't know what else to say about it. So
listen, we have 3 minutes. Of course, I'm going to talk about this with Jarma, but I'm just going to ask you a precise question. When I was watching UTMB, and it struck me when Kilian finished the race. Obviously, you were still racing, so you didn't see it, but I'm pretty sure you must have experienced the same thing. The amount of people that were not in Chamonix, I mean, of course, the streets were full of people, but in the mountains, like people waiting for Kilian in the last uphill and then running with him on the downhill. And I have never seen such, I've never seen such crowd. And I was there in 2003 when the race started. And as happy as I am for the success of the UTMB and everything it brings to the sport, it worries me a little bit. It worried me and it shocked me to see so many people, like so many people. And I'm just wondering from an environmental point of view, if that's a good way to go with the UTMB. Do you think it's a valid question? Or you don't think there's any issue in that regard?
I would have to look at a scientific study of how many people were there, the amount of resources they were using, what the carrying capacity is of Chamonix, like what the effects are. I can't make any statement about that right now.
Okay. Yeah, you're a scientist. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But I mean, you know the difference, right? Like 400 starters at Western States obviously limits the amount of people up there in the mountain cheering or using their cars or even coming to Squaw Valley or Auburn. 10,000 runners and 100,000 spectators. It's a whole different dimension. And I'm just wondering, I don't have any figure either. I'm just wondering, how is the mountain coping?
I mean, I would say it's easy to criticize UTMB for like a lot of mistakes that they make along the way, but they're also one of the main reasons that we're able to be professional athletes in this sport, with the amount of media coverage, the amount just the amount of like coverage we get from the one event.
Sure.
Is a huge part of the sport and how we can maintain our lives in this sport, which we're really lucky to have. I think without that, I wouldn't be in this position. So I cannot speak exactly on the amount of resources all those people are using. I just wanted to put it out there that there's negative things to say about UTMB, and sometimes we forget the positive parts of it too.
No, I don't forget the positive. I love it.
Yeah. No, so I just mean sometimes in general, people especially directly after the race when we feel the mistakes. But there's also a lot of things they did correctly.
I agree. But I would say this, it's not because it allows you to be paid as an athlete and me to work as a journalist, that if it's hurting the planet, it's not a good thing. Like, I don't care about the money that I'm getting out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I put things into perspective.
Yeah, I would need to see I agree. I would need to see data to make a statement.
Okay. We're going to get cut. We only had 40 minutes. But see, we didn't talk about your race. It was hard. I really wanted to talk about it.